the global temperature suddenly plummeted by 200 degrees. My neighbors didn't even have time to buy a pack of instant noodles, while I had already hoarded the entire Walmart supermarket. Seeing my social media posts about pairing red wine with steak, a girl messaged me saying she wanted to eat as well. She thought I would sweetly deliver it to her as I did in my past life. However, she was angrily rebuked by me, "If you want to eat, go out and buy it yourself." It turns out that in my previous life, as the warehouse manager of Walmart, I had hoarded supplies before the end of the world. But on that fateful day, the goddess I had been worshipping for 6 years suddenly knocked on my door, claiming she wanted to borrow food for 2 days. Believing her, I opened the door, only for dozens of my neighbors to rush in and sweep away all my food. To add insult to injury, the goddess complained about the lack of food and suggested that the neighbors chop me up and use my thigh to make soup. She even mocked that it was me who opened the door for her, so they should give her an extra portion of the food. Thus, I died tearfully in pain. Suddenly, I was reborn before the end of the world. I swore to shatter these beasts to pieces. I checked the time, there was a month left before the apocalypse, so I had to hoard enough food and excellent weapons, and most importantly, build an impregnable safe house within this period. As I was thinking, a white light flashed in my eyes. I thought it was just a speck of sand, but when I opened my eyes again, I found myself in this white light. This place was an alternate space of thousands of square kilometers. If used properly, it should be able to store food for 100 or 80 years. Feeling hungry, I walked into a Michelin 5-star restaurant and ordered a table full of dishes that I wouldn't have dared to even think of in my past life. This meal alone cost me 50,000. As I was about to leave after eating, I bumped into my ex-girlfriend, Fang Yuqing, who had feasted on my flesh in my previous life. Her best friend teased her, "You're really lucky. The man who worshipped you for 6 years turns out to be a rich second generation." Hearing this, Fang Yuqing naturally didn't miss the opportunity and immediately put on a pitiful look. "What a coincidence, where are you going?" I turned around and saw the green tea girl who had drunk my thigh soup in my past life. Of course, seeking revenge now was not realistic. Since I was going to the supermarket to collect supplies, I might as well make use of the free labor. Hearing that I was going to the supermarket, Fang Yuqing immediately stepped forward to reconcile. "I need to go as well. We're neighbors, I can help you carry some stuff." Once in the supermarket, I started shopping like crazy, while those 2 women followed me, pushing the cart. Soon, I filled the small cart to the brim. The 2 women immediately felt dissatisfied and said, "We're helping you with the groceries, you have to treat us to a big meal." But after delivering the supplies and mumbling, "We'll talk about it later," I closed the door with a bang and drove the 2 of them away. After they left, I immediately put the food into my alternate space to test its preservation effect. The next morning, I took out the fish and meat from yesterday. Although they were dead, their freshness was still intact, as if they had just been put in. So, I immediately had a bold idea and called the 5-star hotel. "Hello, I want to reserve 500 tables of food, to be delivered to my community within a week." The manager on the other side quickly calculated the cost, which would require about 1 million. Hearing this, I unhesitatingly transferred a deposit of 200,000. But at this moment, I realized that after these days of splurging, my remaining balance was obviously not much. So, the most important thing now was to make money. So, I immediately thought of my house. The apocalypse was coming, there was no point in keeping it. So, I went to the bank and mortgaged it, and my balance instantly rose to 6 million. But this was still far from enough, because next, I needed to buy a large amount of medicine, weapons, and renovate the house. The more money I could get, the better. Just as I was in a dilemma, a middle-aged man said to me, "Do you need money now? Why not try our company?" I was overjoyed, money was being delivered so quickly. He quickly brought me to a man. "You said you want to borrow money, no problem. But let me tell you up front, our interest is very high. I don't care, as long as it's high. The main thing is that I need money now." Seeing that the boss was still unsure, I even took out my property certificate and Mercedes-Benz. The boss finally agreed to lend me 4 million, but he demanded 7 million in return within 3 months. Although it was a bit outrageous, I signed the contract without hesitation. After all, there was less than a month left until the apocalypse, and whether I could survive was still a question. After the money was credited, I immediately went to the War Dragon security company. This company specializes in providing security for celebrities. A man in a suit came over and asked what my requirements were for the safe house. I directly said, "I want the walls to be made of 20 centimeters thick aviation material, all the glass to be replaced with bulletproof glass, and of course, ventilation, monitoring, and the door, all have to be made according to bank vault standards. The goal is to create an impenetrable iron box." After arranging all these, the next thing was to sort out the weapons. Luckily, I had friends in this area and quickly got what I needed. As soon as I returned to the entrance of the community, I saw that the entrance was crowded with people, and 8 large trucks were parked outside. I took a look and realized that the hotel takeout I had ordered had arrived. I asked the trucks to drive directly into the community, and the goods filled the entire community warehouse. What I had to do next was to put all these 1 million worth of food into my alternate space. The next morning, my house began to be renovated. The neighbors thought I was crazy, mocking me for hoarding food and renovating, making it look like the end of the world was coming. But I couldn't be bothered with them. Because it's not until a month later that it's your time to cry. Fong Yuqing, who devoured my flesh and blood in her previous life, has begun to take more interest in me. She thought I was using my identity as a rich second generation to know in advance what was going to happen in the future. But when I saw this, I was too lazy to pay attention to her. I was going to take all the supplies from the Walmart warehouse in South China into my space. For this, I bought 50 pounds of sleeping pills and put them directly into their tea. Within half an hour, they all fell asleep. As the warehouse supervisor, I naturally turned off all surveillance. With just a slight lift of my hand, everything on a whole shelf was taken into my space. Roast chicken, chips and aircraft carriers were all included. I soon emptied the entire warehouse. To avoid suspicion, I pretended to drink the sleeping pills and deliberately put my colleague's hand on my body. Soon I was woken up by my colleague. A disaster had struck, all the goods in our warehouse were gone. I pretended to be in disbelief and then rushed to check. At this time, the manager called and asked me what happened. I claimed to have no idea, saying that we had just taken a 2-hour shift break, and when we woke up, everything had disappeared. The manager on the other side scolded me, saying it was impossible. He suggested that I might be an inside job, taking advantage of the empty warehouse to rob. I, of course, vehemently denied it. The manager had no choice but to call the police. However, after a few days of questioning by the police, they could not find any evidence. No one believed I could do this alone, so they had no choice but to let me go. Just as I arrived on the street, it began to snow. Everything was within my expectations. This was a sign of the impending apocalypse. Sure enough, 2 days later, due to the explosion of a supernova, the shock wave swept across the globe, causing the temperature to plummet. Even on the equator, the temperature was only -10 degrees Celsius. The cold wind was howling outside the house, and Fong Yuqing, a goddess from the south, was still rejoicing, saying that seeing snow in her lifetime was a rare sight. Little did she know, this snowstorm would last for 3 months, and the global temperature would drop to -60 degrees Celsius. In just one night, the snow had piled up to 2 meters high. Most people were shivering with cold, but I, who had prepared in advance, was under a warm blanket, enjoying a peaceful sleep. Suddenly, my phone rang. It was Fong Yuqing. She complained right away, asking me why I had hoarded so many supplies. She asked if I had known in advance that the temperature would drop sharply and why I hadn't told her in advance. After hearing this, I just smirked and hung up the phone decisively. Seeing this, Fong Yuqing was furious. She had always been a loyal follower and couldn't understand why I suddenly stopped following her. But soon, she calmed down and sent me a message asking if she could borrow some food from me. She promised to return it to me after the snow disaster. I sent her a picture of a steak with red wine. Fong Yuqing thought I would deliver it to her with a flattering face, but to her surprise, as soon as she sent the message, I immediately replied, "Want to eat? Go buy it at the supermarket." Fong Yuqing was furious but held back. After all, she couldn't let one fish in the pond disturb her peace of mind. At this time, my security system sent a message saying that the neighborhood ant had stopped everyone who wanted to go out. Everyone, don't panic. The extreme weather will pass in a few days. Now, if everyone rushes out to grab supplies and raise prices, it will cause unnecessary chaos. After hearing this, I just chuckled. This snowstorm would last for 3 months, and going out to buy supplies now was undoubtedly the last chance. But the neighborhood committee actually stopped everyone. At this point, the neighbors began to argue. Who knows when this snow will stop? What if there's nothing to eat? With that, they were about to leave, but they were still ruthlessly stopped by the ant. She even said that hoarding supplies would only raise prices, and those who disobeyed would be reported to the higher authorities. Everyone was stunned on the spot. At this point, I walked out of the building and said, "Aunt Lin, can you guarantee that this snow will only last for 2 or 3 days? If everyone has nothing to eat, are you responsible? Can we come to your house to get food?" Everyone agreed and said, "If there's nothing to eat, we'll go to your house to get it." Aunt Lin immediately retorted, "Don't worry, everyone. The neighborhood committee assures you that there will be no shortage of supplies. The snow disaster will pass quickly. Instead, it's this young man who is stirring up trouble at this time. Don't you know that this is against the law and order?" I just smiled and said, "Aunt Lin, don't put this hat on me. I can't afford it. You can listen or not. Anyway, I won't go out casually. After a few days, the temperature had already dropped to -60°C. I was at home eating snacks and playing games when suddenly Aunt Lynn sent a message in the neighborhood group, naming me to go out and shovel snow, while she was at home warming herself by the fire. I immediately retorted, what's the use of going out to shovel snow now? The snow that's shoveled is less than the snow that's falling. Besides, I don't want to become an icicle. Seeing my message, people in the group also started to agree, yeah, it's so cold. If you go out, you'll get frostbite. If you want to go, you go. I won't. Aunt Lynn was immediately furious and said that shoveling snow was for the benefit of the entire neighborhood. You young guys retreat when you encounter a little problem. Don't you have any team spirit? I now order you in the name of the neighborhood committee to go out and shovel snow immediately. If you don't go, wait to be punished by the organization. I laughed when I heard this. You always rely on being the neighborhood committee and give orders at will. Since that's the case, today I'm going to completely tear off this mask. Immediately, I start typing in response, since it's all for everyone, your neighborhood committee should take the lead. Moreover, there are so many people in the group, why do you only call a few of us? You think we're easy to bully, right? What about the rich second generation upstairs, Jinjinhao and Shuihao? Why don't you dare to make a sound? Aunt Lynn, hearing this, immediately gets furious. This kid is blatantly naming names, clearly trying to make me lose face. If I don't call them, I'm afraid my position in the neighborhood committee won't be easy to maintain. So, Aunt Lynn immediately starts typing and tags them in the group. Unexpectedly, Jinjinhao gets enraged upon hearing this, you're so big-headed, snow sis. If you dare to bother me again, I'll kill you today. And Aunt Lynn doesn't dare to make a sound after hearing this. Su Hao directly says, Aunt Lynn is a stupid dog. Using the owner's money to show off and act arrogant. Actually considering herself as the master. Telling me to shovel snow, go as far as you can from me. After saying this, he even sends a sweet photo with his girlfriend. Aunt Lynn immediately gets furious, well, now the task isn't done and I've offended a lot of people. He immediately blames all the mistakes on me. And I directly call Aunt Lynn, you're a coward who bullies the weak and fears the strong. You've been scolded and you don't dare to make a sound. If you dare to bark like a mad dog again, be careful, I'll take your life. Aunt Lynn, hearing this, instantly gets scared and can only mumble in a small voice, you'll get your just desserts. Suddenly, there's a loud knocking on my door. I look through the surveillance and it's Jinjinhao who was just being very aggressive in the group chat, saying he's going to kill me today. And I don't bother to talk nonsense with him. Because this Jinjinhao is the one who made soup out of my body in my previous life. Since he's come to my doorstep, I'll take good care of him. So, I immediately take out a strong crossbow, aim it directly at the peephole, and shoot it directly into his thigh. Jinjinhao immediately grabs his thigh and starts wailing, the reason I do this is to use the extreme cold weather to torture him. After all, the pain of flesh and blood in my previous life is my greatest humiliation in this life. At this point, Jinjinhao also realizes the danger and quickly drags his injured leg to go back. In this extreme cold weather, if he doesn't get treatment in time, his entire leg will have to be discarded. He quickly dials the emergency number 120, but no one answers the phone after waiting for a long time. He immediately realizes that in this weather, even if the hospital is open, the ambulance can't come. So, he has to choose to do it himself and forcibly pulls out the sharp sword. The intense pain makes him want to take revenge every moment. So, he immediately tags me in the group chat, Zhang Yi, you wait. If I don't kill you, I'll go feed the fish in the mountains. And I also reply domineeringly, come on, if you dare to provoke me again, I'll cripple your Li Ji. Seeing us quarreling in the group, Aunt Lynn and Fang Yuqing are instantly scared. After all, Jinjinhao is notorious for being ruthless in the small gathering. As expected, Jinjinhao doesn't idle around. He immediately calls his little brother and tells him to come to my neighborhood immediately. Today, I must chop this dog thing. Soon, his little brothers all gather and block my door, constantly shouting outside, you, kid, quickly open the door and come out to die. As he says this, his big knife slashes at the door. However, the big knife not only breaks but also rebounds and gets stuck in the wall behind him. When he looks at the door again, it's completely unscathed. However, I see all of this through my surveillance. It seems that I have to teach them a lesson. I immediately find a water pipe, connect it to the faucet, and gently extend it outside the door. The little brother thinks it's going to be an arrow shot like last time and even takes out a shield to block it. However, what sprays out is the freezing cold tap water. In the -60 degrees outside, they are instantly drenched. In just a few seconds, their bodies are frozen and they can't move. But I'm watching the surveillance in my warm room, humming a little tune, thinking that this is not less powerful than the crossbow. When things go wrong, Chen Jinhao immediately gets furious. You're all a bunch of waste. So many people can't even handle a little kid. A few people explain, this kid's door, let alone go in, I've been smashing it for half a day, and my hand is numb. But the door didn't even lose a bit of paint. Chen Jinhao hears this and deeply understands. That door is indeed like a turtle shell. Since he won't come out, then I'll stay at his doorstep for a lifetime. As soon as he comes out, you guys immediately take care of him. How brother is right. As long as he dares to come out, I'll dismember him. However, what they don't know is that the supplies I have stored can consume all the people present to death. I look at the 3-meter thick snow outside the window. Aunt Lin is still coaxing a group of people to shovel snow. I'm speechless for a moment. And at this time, the TV is still reporting the situation of the snow disaster, trying to reassure people around the world that this snow disaster will definitely pass. However, only I know that this so-called snow disaster is actually the end of the world. At this time, Fang Yuqing, the White Lotus, sends me a message asking me how I've been recently. I casually reply, I'm doing well. As expected, no good deed goes unpunished. She's either a thief or a traitor. Fang Yuqing starts to borrow supplies from me, saying that she will treat me to a meal after the snow disaster is over. In this situation, I obviously choose to refuse. However, I still take a picture of a big lobster and send it to her, writing on it, you're going to treat me to a meal. It's a coincidence, I just ate it. As soon as the message is sent, Fang Yuqing and her best friend are instantly furious. They originally planned to push you forward in the dog-licking queue. It seems that I've thought too much. This kind of man deserves to be single for a lifetime. The best friend sees this and doesn't give up, so she starts to play the good cop with me. You're so stupid. The snow disaster is about to end. If you give all the food to Fang Yuqing, then trick Fang Yuqing into your hands, won't you make a big profit? But I obviously don't eat this set, just casually reply 2 words. The best friend sees this and is speechless. This kid, obviously you're her dog licker. How come you're impervious now? Since this kid doesn't get it, don't you still have other dog lickers? Now is the time for them to show their performance. Sure enough, in the next second, Fang Yuqing calls a dog licker named Zhou Peng. After a round of acting cute and flirting, Zhou Peng actually brings things to the door, saying that these are his best things and hopes that Fang Yuqing will like them. At this moment, the White Lotus immediately shows a face full of gratitude. A sentence, "You're so nice," makes Zhou Peng unable to extricate himself. But as soon as the door closes, Fang Yuqing's face changes instantly. She thinks, with Zhou Peng's caliber, he dares to have ideas about me. Isn't it a toad wanting to eat swan meat? Soon, a week passes. But today, I'm not playing games, but staring at the time on my phone. Because the real good show starts today. Just then, there's a sudden power outage in the neighborhood. Everyone immediately starts to panic. Because once the power goes out, it means that the tap water will also stop. That is to say, now not only is there no air conditioning, but even drinking water has become a problem. But I'm different. I had started 2 generators, and instantly, my place was the only one lit up across the whole neighborhood. At this time, Aunt Lin was still going against her conscience. Even though the notices had been sent out everywhere, the whole world had already fallen into chaos. Yet, she was still posting notices in the homeowners group chat, telling everyone that the snow disaster was temporary and that the water and electricity outages were being repaired. She even said that during this time, the whole area would be under control, and anyone who didn't comply would be handed over to the police. Soon, Aunt Lin sent another message. The gist of it was that she wanted to collect resources from everyone's homes and distribute them evenly. When I saw this, I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect her to have the same plan as she did in my previous life. Not too long after, Aunt Lin messaged me. Little Zhang, you work at the warehouse. You must have hoarded a lot of food, right? I remember you bought 3 carts of food last time. How about this, you bring out all your stuff to help everyone get through this difficult time. Once the snow disaster is over, I promise we will return everything to you. At that time, everyone will praise your kindness. When I heard this, I was instantly filled with anger. In my previous life, it was because she led everyone to deceive me of my resources. I kindly gave some out, only to invite wolves into my home. In the end, they mercilessly turned me into soup. So I immediately replied, that would be great. If you manage to collect resources, don't forget to share some with me, Aunt Lin. Upon hearing this, Aunt Lin was instantly furious. She knew I had hoarded a lot of resources but was unwilling to give them up. She saw this as intentional concealment. Soon, she calmed down. After all, it seemed that I was the only one in the neighborhood with a substantial amount of resources. As long as she could trick me into giving them up, there would be enough food for a week. So she called me directly. "Little Zhang, I know you have food at home. I'm really out of options. This is an order from the higher-ups. For everyone's sake, please make a contribution. I and the organization will remember your kindness." I just smiled faintly after hearing this. "Aunt Lin, you really have a sense of humor. Where is there any food in my house? Since it's a request from the organization, why don't you send me a few packs of instant noodles? At least you should set an example, right?" Seeing my refusal, Aunt Lin immediately scolded me loudly. "Didn't you understand what I said? I am representing the organization now. If you don't hand over the resources, it's equivalent to opposing the organization. After the snow disaster is over, I will definitely deal with you. You represent the organization. You can do all this with just a neighborhood committee. Even if the Emperor of Heaven comes today, I will not hand over the resources. Let me tell you the truth, I don't lack anything, but I just won't give it. If you have the ability, come and get it. I'm waiting for you at home. Let's see if I can't kill you, you old witch." After saying this, I immediately hung up the phone. Aunt Lin, who was scolded, was instantly furious. She never thought that she, a neighborhood leader, would be bullied by a young man today. But she didn't dare to make this public at the moment. The most important thing was to trick as many people as she could. As expected, under Aunt Lin's sweet talk, some people still offered up their resources. All I could do was smirk when I saw this, because in this kind of temperature, having resources means you can live longer. Otherwise, you can only wait for death. Sure enough, this quickly aroused the suspicions of the neighbors. They had been promised uniform distribution, but after 2 days, they saw no distribution. What they didn't know was that Aunt Lin had long since pocketed everything. Just then, her phone rang. She saw it was a call from Chen Zhenghao and was instantly stunned. After all, she was a notoriously ruthless person in the neighborhood. As expected, as soon as the call was answered, Chen Zhenghao scolded her. "Aunt Lin, you really have some nerve. After getting everyone's resources, you refuse to hand them over." Aunt Lin tried to explain, but was interrupted by Chen Zhenghao. "I don't care if it's the higher-up's intention or if you want to keep everything for yourself. Let me tell you, if you don't hand over the resources today, don't blame me for not warning you. My dozen or so guys haven't tasted meat for a long time." He brought his men and stormed into Aunt Lin's house. Aunt Lin tried to resist, but was met with a big slap from Chen Zhenghao. "You dare to deceive the neighbors of their resources as a neighborhood committee leader? I will punish you in place of heaven today." Aunt Lin was quickly knocked to the ground. Chen Zhenghao immediately ordered his men to take all the resources. Upon hearing this, Aunt Lin panicked and immediately clung to his leg, begging for mercy. "There are things I hoarded in there too. If you take them away, how will my grandson and I survive? How you survive is none of my business. Get lost." With that, he kicked Aunt Lin away. Her grandson saw his grandmother being beaten and was instantly stunned. The next second, he took out a small knife and rushed up, stabbing it directly into one of the gang members' buttocks. However, the damage was minimal, and the gang member was just annoyed. He turned around and kicked the boy, sending him flying. While he was still joking about his cool move, Aunt Lin was holding her grandson, crying in regret. Little did she know, all of this was caught on my surveillance camera. I never thought they would start fighting among themselves so quickly. If I were to post the video in the homeowners group, wouldn't that be explosive? Sure enough, when I posted the video in the group chat, it instantly blew up. Everyone was saying that Aunt Lin, the big liar, deserved it and that Chen Zhenghao was their hero. Seeing this, I just smiled because they hadn't realized the severity of the problem yet. Chen Zhenghao was a notorious thug in the neighborhood. Today he dared to rob Aunt Lin's resources, and tomorrow he might just break into their homes. Yet no one understood this. But all these things had nothing to do with me. After all, my house was built to the standard of a bank vault. Soon, Aunt Lin sent another message asking if anyone had hemostatic drugs and anti-shock drugs. My grandson was injured, and now Dr. Zhou needs to perform surgery. We urgently need medicine. When I saw this, I was taken aback. Not because I cared about the safety of her grandson, but because this Dr. Zhou was the same Dr. Zhou who performed a nucleic acid test on me in my previous life. He was a doctor at the First People's Hospital of Tianhai City and saved many people with his own hands. He was one of the few good people in the neighborhood. At this point, Aunt Lin was pleading in the group chat. She said that although her grandson had undergone surgery, he still needed medicine to save his life. She begged everyone to help, even saying she was bowing to them in thanks. But before Aunt Lin could respond, Su Hao sent a message saying he was willing to pay 2,000 for it, and that he would take as much as she had at home. Eating my chicken leg, I murmured, "Oh, interesting things are about to start." As soon as the message was sent, some people even felt that 2,000 for a pack of instant noodles was worth it, while others said this was price gouging. Only I understood that this was just the beginning of food scarcity. Soon, Su Hao received a message from a mother in the neighborhood scolding him. Su Hao, how could you do this? We don't have a single bite of food at home. We buy food to save lives. However, Su Hao didn't care. He retorted, I didn't compete with you. I just have money and am willing to pay a high price. It's their decision whom they are willing to sell to. You, as a meddlesome old woman, have no right to interfere, I said. The woman remained silent and continued to send messages, claiming she had a 9-month-old child and needed everyone's help. I was the only one who saw through her. A single mother seeking help with her child. If anyone agreed, she would cling to them, and they would end up as the big loser. What puzzled me was that in her past life, she had persevered with her child for a long time. It meant that this single mother wasn't as simple as she appeared. Half a month quickly passed. One day, while I was working out at home, my phone suddenly rang. It was Fang Yuqing. It seemed that these two green teas couldn't hold back any longer. As soon as I answered the video call, they were immediately attracted by the food behind me, drooling. She was surprised and asked me why I had so much food. Was it because I had hoarded it from the last shopping trip? And it looked very warm where I was, as I was sweating. I casually replied, the food you're talking about is all junk food. I eat some when I don't cook. As for why I'm so hot, it's because I have a fireplace installed at home. It's so hot inside that I'm uncomfortable. Upon hearing this, Fang Yuqing was immediately starstruck. Brother Zhang Yi, you're too amazing. I didn't expect you to be so well prepared. I admire you so much. Can I come over to your place? I can even help you with the nucleic acid test. Hearing this, I suddenly felt nauseous. I thought to myself, was I crazy in my previous life to have been her lapdog for 10 years? So, I immediately replied, oh, I see. I don't know how cold it is outside, but judging by your look, you must be freezing like a dog, right? Sure enough, Fang Yuqing was immediately infuriated and revealed her true colors. Zhang Yi, don't go too far. We're freezing and starving, and you're not helping. You're just adding insult to injury. Oh, you can't pretend anymore, can you? You're so eager to call me, I guess it's because you can't find any rich second generation to take over, right? You really think you're all that, huh? I'm not a fool. Besides, we're neither relatives nor friends. Why should I help you? Fang Yuqing wanted to curse me out, but immediately hung up the phone, infuriating her. Damn it, Zhang Yi dares to curse at me. Her best friend saw the failure to get food and said, Fang Yuqing, you're just an idiot. You're still pretending to be high and mighty at this time. If you had handled Zhang Yi properly, we wouldn't be freezing and starving now. You've been exposed now, you feel stupid, don't you? Fang Yuqing, filled with anger, immediately started a fight with her best friend. Meanwhile, the TV station finally released reliable news. All major power plants are in a state of power outage and can only supply power from 1 to 2 p.m. every day, and only small power appliances can be used. I was taken aback. It seems that the authorities can no longer cover up the current snow disaster situation. I thought it was ridiculous that people were still trying to make money at this time, selling a packet of instant noodles for 5,000. Knowing that the world is at the end, food is priceless, yet they are still exchanging supplies for pitiful money. It's really hard to fathom people's hearts. But it doesn't affect me at all. Although I can't go out, the fireplace at home keeps me warm. I just drink wine and play games every day. The only thing I have to worry about in this apocalypse is the people who are injured and have no medicine, and can only stare at each other after a fight. But unexpectedly, Fang Yuqing immediately had a new plan. Since she couldn't seek help from Zhang Yi, she might as well get rid of Zhang Yi. But the two of us alone are not enough. So, Fang Yuqing immediately dialed the lapdog Zhou Peng's phone, intending to tear me to pieces. However, when Zhou Peng arrived at Fang Yuqing's house, Fang Yuqing slandered me, saying that Zhang Yi, taking advantage of his abundance of food and drinks, deliberately humiliated me and asked me to go over and help him with the nucleic acid test. Lapdog Zhou Peng was immediately furious when he heard this. And Fang Yuqing immediately hugged Zhou Peng, pretending to be pitiful, and said, let's figure out a way to take over his house, and then we can live there together, okay? In this way, Zhou Peng was deceived by Fang Yuqing in a few words. Soon, the three of them came to my doorstep. Zhou Peng asked Fang Yuqing and the other girl to hide temporarily, and he knocked on my door alone. Zhang Yi, are you home? I'm Zhou Peng. I only turned on the surveillance at this moment and saw that it was Zhou Peng. But being cautious, I immediately became suspicious. I'm sure this guy is up to no good. So, I rewound the surveillance and found out that it was Fang Yuqing who brought him here, and he had all kinds of weapons in his hands. As soon as I opened the door, there would be no chance of survival. Seeing this, I was immediately furious. They want to kill me, I'll give them a taste of their own medicine today. So, I planned to spray them with water like last time. Suddenly, I saw the sewage in the trash can in the kitchen. Since they have no food, let them have a full meal today. But at this moment, Zhou Peng was still begging outside, "Zhang Yi, please open the door. For the sake of us being classmates, can you give me some food?" Right now, I put the water hose into the door crack. The three of them heard the noise and thought I was going to open the door. I never expected that the next moment, we'd be drenched in filthy water. Fang Yuqing and I were instantly stunned. Regardless of how cold it was, the stench alone was enough to make Fang Yuqing start retching uncontrollably. Zhou Peng was infuriated, constantly shouting at Zhang Yi to come out. "I'm going to kill you today," he roared. With that, he swung his large knife at my front door. Surprisingly, the door remained intact, and the knife rebounded and hit his own hand. Zhou Peng immediately cried out in pain. Watching the surveillance, I couldn't help but smile. Another fool who doesn't know how to stay alive. "You want me to come out?" "I won't," I thought. "I have plenty of food at home. Today, I'm going to starve you to death." Soon, Chen Zhenghao began to expand his target. One day, I was suddenly awakened by gunshots outside. I quickly got up and turned on the surveillance, only to find out it was Chen Zhenghao. He took advantage of the people in the house going out to rob their supplies. I must say, the person on the third floor is really unfortunate. Even if he doesn't die from his injuries, he won't be able to hold on for long. But Chen Zhenghao wasn't planning on letting it go at that, he had a grand plan in mind. He took out his phone and recorded himself robbing the supplies, then posted the news in the homeowners group. He declared himself the leader of the building, with all arrangements subject to his decision. He even attached a picture of himself holding a gun and killing the third-floor homeowner. I was taken aback. Chen Zhenghao was clever, he clearly knew he couldn't fight against an entire building with his limited resources, so he decided to make an example out of someone, using both carrot and stick tactics to make everyone afraid. Just then, I was added to a new group. The group quickly began to buzz, with people saying Chen Zhenghao was crazy. One person proposed uniting to resist, saying they weren't afraid of his gun. "We are united, he can't stop us," they said. Some agreed that it was necessary to deal with him but reminded everyone that Chen Zhenghao was a desperado, so they needed to plan carefully. Others said it was a fool's move and that they needed to outsmart him. I chuckled. Outsmart him? I thought. You just want someone else to take the bullet for you until a man named Uncle You spoke the truth. He said that if things continued like this, Chen Zhenghao would surely run out of resources. Even if he wasn't shot dead, he would starve to death once his food was gone. I can take the lead. Let's go and teach these bastards a lesson, he suggested. Everyone agreed and said they would support him with the only kitchen knives they had at home. Uncle Yu was overjoyed at the response. But considering Chen Zhenghao had at least 5 or 6 men and guns, he decided to recruit a few more young men. However, as soon as he sent the message, a woman in the group angrily rebuked him. She argued that Uncle Yu might also be planning to join Chen Zhenghao, leaving the elderly and weak behind. The group quickly descended into chaos, with one side calling the other cowards for not resisting and the other accusing Uncle Yu of being a spy. I sighed deeply at the sight. Even at a time like this, they were still arguing. Some people really do deserve to die. Meanwhile, Chen Zhenghao began another round of violence, this time against his own men. When one of his men tried to argue, Chen Zhenghao pressed a gun against his head. I told you to get rid of it, so you get rid of it. He's about to die, and you still want to keep him here? Do you want to end up like him? He threatened. The man, terrified, quickly agreed. You're right, boss. Once a man is dead, we should make use of him. Their deaths can help us live a little longer. Chen Zhenghao was pleased with the response. But in reality, he knew that his men only obeyed him because he had a gun. The only way to ensure unity was to make sure everyone had a share of the meat. Watching the surveillance, I realized that Chen Zhenghao was a ruthless man who lived up to his reputation. He left the bodies of his men at the front door, presumably to use them as a last resort when food ran out. If he ever crossed paths with someone like me, he would need to be eliminated sooner rather than later. The next morning, Lu Tiantian, who had previously accused Uncle Yu of being a spy for Chen Zhenghao, sent a message. He said that Chen Zhenghao was breaking down his door and begged Uncle Yu to come help. He urged everyone to unite at this critical moment. But no one responded. Lu Tiantian had no choice but to use his last bit of strength to resist, but he was no match for Chen Zhenghao. They quickly broke in and dragged him out of his house without giving him a chance to fight back. After that, messages began to flood the group, saying that Lu Tiantian got what he deserved. The news quickly reached Fang Yuqing, who was shocked at Lu Tiantian's fate. Could he really harm other women too, she wondered. Sooner or later, they will attack us. We must devise a strategy to take down Zhang Yi. The only chance for our survival lies in exposing the information about the resources in Zhang Yi's house and rallying everyone to seize them. Consequently, Fang Yuqing quickly created a group chat. I was quickly tagged in the group, with everyone insisting that many hands make light work. However, the reality was that they would tear me to pieces the moment I opened the door. I had fallen for Fang Yuqing's words in my past life, resulting in my neighbors boiling my bones in a soup. There's no way I would allow history to repeat itself. I quickly responded, I don't need your help. I'm quite comfortable on my own. Find help elsewhere. As soon as the message was sent, my neighbors began criticizing me, accusing me of being short-sighted. My girlfriend even brought up our 7-year friendship. But I didn't buy into it. I retorted, survival is up to individual capabilities. You offer me no value, why should I choose to help you? After saying that, I promptly exited the group. Fang Yuqing and the others were shocked, accusing me of being heartless. They reminded me of the times we played poker together. Her best friend was even more furious, demanding they convince Zhang Yi or leave her house. That's when a young man with glasses suggested, there's no need to be polite with someone like Zhang Yi. We can simply break in and seize his resources. I used to work at a locksmith's. There's no lock on the market that I can't open, Fang Yuqing applauded the idea. Soon, they arrived at my door, one of them crouched down to pick the lock while the others held umbrellas, assuming my only defense would be throwing water. They thought once the door was open, I would be finished. Little did they know, I was watching their every move. I chuckled, you think you can break into my house? I have a 5-layer security door installed, built to the standards of a bank vault. If you manage to break in, wouldn't my money be wasted? I decided to give them a taste of their medicine and activated the high-voltage electrical defense feature on the door. A high-voltage current surged through the lockpicker, turning him into a charred corpse within 2.5 seconds. Fang Yuqing was shocked at the sight, and another man started shouting at me, you bastard, come out and face us. We tried to negotiate peacefully, but you've started killing. Give us an explanation. I simply laughed, you still want to play innocent? If I step out, wouldn't you kill me? Do you take me for a fool? I took out my crossbow, this time loaded with a rusty iron sword, and aimed it at the door. It seems I need to teach you a lesson. You think you can survive the global temperature drop of 200 degrees without resources? You couldn't even buy a pack of instant noodles, while I have an entire supermarket's worth in my house. Seeing my daily feasts on social media, my girlfriend decided to target me. She sweet-talked a group of people into breaking into my house, thinking I would just throw water like last time, even bringing umbrellas for defense. But this time, I activated my high-voltage defense, turning the lockpicker into a charred corpse within 2.5 seconds. Seeing this, Fang Yuqing panicked, while the man with glasses started cursing me, you little shit, come out. We won't leave until we've torn you to pieces. As soon as he finished speaking, a sword shot out from the door gap, piercing his arm. Realizing the danger, they tried to escape, but 2 more swords flew out, impaling them. The others, including Fang Yuqing, fled in terror. Back in their house, they found the swords were rusty iron ones. Only then did they realize that I was out for their lives. In this extreme weather, without antibiotics, they were doomed. The man with glasses was terrified, it's impossible. I can't die before I get married. Fang Yuqing's cousin was furious, slapping Fang Yuqing, you damned bitch, it's all your fault. You said his house only had a sturdy door, why are there swords? Did you know all along and kept your distance? Fang Yuqing played the victim, I really didn't know this would happen. The last time we went there, he didn't attack us with crossbows. You have to believe me. Her cousin was furious, but there was no time for anger. She took out her phone and called Dr. Zhou. Upon examining the injuries, Dr. Zhou was shocked, another sword injury? You need to find professional equipment for surgery as soon as possible. Otherwise, I can't guarantee anything. If we rashly remove the sword, it will cause an infection. Without antibiotics, the patient is doomed. Fang Yuqing remembered that I had medicine at home because she had seen someone deliver it a month ago. However, the only chance they had was to approach my house again. But the man with glasses was terrified and insisted they find me. However, his cousin pointed out, we were just driven away by Zhang Yi. How could he possibly save us? But Fang Yuqing retorted, that's not necessarily true. We didn't intend to hurt him. He's the one who refused to recognize our good intentions. We are the victims here. Hearing this, the cousin assigned Fang Yuqing the task. Since Zhang Yi had pursued you before, you are the most suitable person for this. Fang Yuqing was startled, but for survival's sake, she reluctantly agreed. Soon, she called me. As soon as I answered, she started crying. I'm sorry, Zhang Yi. I was wrong. Lu Tao is dead now, and Zhou Peng has been shot by your rusty arrow. He's dying. Please open the door and give us some antibiotics. However, before she could finish, I retorted, let him die. We're all going to die sooner or later. You really think you can survive this snow disaster? I'm not bragging, but do understand that we're in the midst of an apocalyptic snow disaster. Even if Qin Zhenghao doesn't kill us, we'll likely freeze or starve to death without food. However, Fang Yuqing is oblivious to this. She pleads desperately for mercy, incessantly crying and begging for some medicine. But Wang simply loses her patience, snatches the phone and admonishes me not to cross the line. We're all in the same boat, she insists, give us the medicine. You might need our help in the future, use you. I challenge, can you guess why I choose a rusty iron sword? I want you to suffer and despair, slowly tortured to death by illness. And by the way, the bodies of your companions are still at the door. If I save you, am I waiting for your revenge? Wang tries to argue, but my words cut her off. In consideration of playing poker with Fang Yuqing, I would consider letting her come alone. Hearing this, Fang Yuqing immediately reveals her true nature. I knew Zhang Yi is the best. You should let Yuqing live in your house. You can ask Yuqing to do anything in the future, okay? At this point, I feel nauseous. Come over then. I have something good for you. Unexpectedly, Fang Yuqing believes me, saying that Zhang Yi is the best. Whatever you ask me to do, I'll do. I'll bring my bestie along. This is immediately rejected by me. I only love you, and you must keep a distance from those people. Upon hearing this, Fang Yuqing loses her mind and heads out. Her bestie tries to stop her but is shoved away. I'm tired of this life. Don't stop me from going to Zhang Yi's house. The next second, Wang gives Fang Yuqing a big slap. You're really shameless. You caused us so much trouble, and now you want to leave just like that? Zhou Peng, the sycophant, also tries to stop her but gets scolded. What's wrong with me pursuing my own happiness? Staying with you is just waiting for death. Then she pulls out the good guy card on Zhou Peng. You're a good guy. But if you love me, shouldn't you want me to be happy? You've helped me a lot, but it's still not as much as Zhang Yi. After saying this, Fang Yuqing turns to leave, but is pushed to the ground by her bestie. Zhou Peng, you see, this kind of woman is not worth your consideration. Watch her closely and don't let her run away. At this moment, Dr. Zhou steps forward, kindly reminding them that he has temporarily treated their injuries, but without antibiotics, they can only wait for death. Upon hearing this, the bespectacled man falls to the ground, proposing a plan to deal with me. According to the photos in the group, my house not only has a heating fireplace but also a lot of living supplies. Instead of confronting me directly, they can leak the information to everyone in the building, including Qin Zhenghao's crazy gang. They can all come to destroy my house, and then they can share the spoils. Upon hearing this, Fang Yuqing immediately retorts, you're too shameless. I'm going to live with Zhang Yi in the future. Are you trying to ruin me? Upon hearing this, Wang immediately steps forward wanting to slap her, but Zhou Peng stops her, expressing his true love for Fang Yuqing and his determination to win her over. At this point, Wang is gritting her teeth in anger, but it's not the time to think about it. She takes out her phone and releases the news that I have food at home, accusing me of being selfish and enjoying a luxurious life. Soon, Qin Zhenghao sees the message and his face darkens immediately. I didn't expect this kid to have so many good things at home. It seems I have to pay a visit. The neighbors are starving, while I'm at home drinking red wine and eating steak. Soon, the news that I have food spreads throughout the community. The most dissatisfied is the local thug, Qin Zhenghao. Seeing my table full of food, he immediately brings his brothers to my door. But in the end, the injured are injured, and the dead are dead. However, the remaining neighbors can only morally kidnap me, asking me to take out the supplies. Some people say they will give me all their property, some say they will let their children recognize me as a godfather, and even if there are other requirements, they can agree to them. But I just laugh at them. After all, in my previous life, I was mercilessly chopped into soup because I became a saint. There's no reason to talk to these beastly neighbors. So, I directly reply in the group, I'd rather feed the dog than share with you. Naturally, this infuriates the neighbors. You're still stubborn when you're about to die. I see how long you can jump. Then, the bespectacled man creates a group, and Qin Zhenghao immediately proposes conditions as soon as he enters the group, stating that my home has more supplies than all of them combined. I can now set aside personal grudges and unite everyone to overthrow him. The only condition is that I get half of the supplies. Upon hearing this, the neighbors agreed unanimously, except for Zhou Kur, who sent me a message saying that they planned to take action today. But I knew it all along, and even had my weapons and equipment ready, just waiting for them to come knocking on death's door. However, before that, I told Zhou Kur that she must not come here when they take action. I certainly don't want her to witness a scene full of corpses. Now, get ready to meet your death. Soon, Chen Zhenghao brought a group of people to my doorstep. A few of them teased me outside, but I didn't respond. They took out a big hammer and started smashing my door. Seeing this, I just smiled. This door was built according to the standard of a bank vault. If you managed to break it open, wouldn't that be a waste of my money? I immediately activated the high-voltage electricity of the door. The next second, the neighbors turned into flashmen, being electrocuted until they were charred inside and out. This scene shocked the others so much that they all started to back off. But as they turned around, they were stopped by Chen Zhenghao. Chen Zhenghao quickly drew out his gun and asked what they were trying to do. Were they planning to desert in the face of battle? Under the instigation of the others, the neighbors began to rally again, determined to break open the door and tear me to pieces. As long as they could break open my door, they could enjoy my warm Peruvian food and endless supply of food. To prevent me from using high-voltage electricity again, the neighbors found wooden stakes and kept hitting my door, but no matter what they did, the door didn't budge at all. The only annoyance was the noise. So, I turned on the music and played a song to cheer them on. Unexpectedly, the music made the neighbors even more frenzied, and they kept smashing for 2.5 hours non-stop. In the end, they finally collapsed in tears. What's going on? Why isn't it moving at all? A neighbor who was an expert in cool things stepped forward to examine it, only to find that this door was extraordinary. After a while, he could only shake his head. You should give up. This door is not ordinary. Even if you use explosives, it won't help. It is a top-level security door, comparable to a bank vault. As he was speaking, I had already grabbed my weapon and was standing in front of the door, aiming directly at his neck. With a whoosh, it pierced straight through, scaring the neighbors half to death. They didn't care about anyone else's safety and just wanted to escape, cursing me for being inhuman. I didn't care and directly took down the people outside the door. In just a moment, a large number of neighbors fell in front of my door. The only one who survived in the narrow gap of the door said to everyone, "Don't panic and run. I have thought of a way to deal with him. Since we can't break open Zhang Yi's security door, why don't we break open his wall?" At this, the neighbors suddenly saw the light and immediately took out their excavators and hammers to smash my wall. That's right. I want to see how Zhang Yi can still laugh then. 2 hours later, cracks finally appeared in the wall. The neighbors thought they had succeeded, but when they hit it with a hammer, the wall didn't break open. Instead, the recoil made them shiver. The neighbors quickly checked and found a thick iron plate inside the wall. This immediately angered the people present. They called me a pervert. Who else would use steel plates to build a house? However, there were still a group of neighbors who refused to believe in evil. They used all their strength, prying and smashing again and again. Little did they know that the entire exterior of my house was reinforced with 20 meters of alloy steel. Not to mention their iron hammers and axes, even atomic bombs wouldn't be able to blow it open. It would be better to save their strength and think about how to survive. At this time, the neighbors outside finally realized that they were ineffective and remembered that I had renovated my house a while ago. One of them, a boy with glasses, angrily said, "So that means Zhang Yi knew there would be a snow disaster, and everything he did was to prevent us from getting in." Suddenly, all the neighbors began to morally kidnap me, saying that I had no shame. Everyone else was dead. What good would it do for me to live? At this time, Chen Zhenghao finally stood up. "You guys really don't have brains. Even if his walls are iron, what about the roof and the floor? You guys split up and go tear it apart. I don't believe he can make an iron box." Sure enough, as soon as he said this, the neighbors got excited again and began to work on my roof and floor. But the result was just as Chen Zhenghao said. My house was like a sealed iron box. The neighbors were all stunned by this scene. The intense labor accelerated their hunger, and several people immediately collapsed in tears. Suddenly, one man looked at the others and started drooling. "Am I stupid? Isn't the food right in front of me?" Seeing that they still couldn't get in to rob my food, the neighbors began to cry outside and morally kidnap me. They said that there was so much food in my house, what could one person living compare to the whole neighborhood living? Even if it meant sacrificing myself, it would be worth it. Just then, some clever neighbors finally thought of the balcony. He said he clearly remembered that I had turned the balcony into a floor-to-ceiling window, a large area of which was glass. This might be our chance to get in. As soon as he said this, the neighbors got excited again and took out their weapons and came to my balcony from the next building. At this time, I was leisurely drinking coffee, looking at the angry neighbors outside the window. If you didn't know better, you would think there were zombies. Seeing the food all over my house, the neighbors immediately started to take action, smashing and cursing at the same time. "Wait until I break this damn glass, you're done today, you selfish bastard." However, seeing this, I was not flustered at all. You should know that this glass is a triple-layer bulletproof glass. With their broken hammers, they couldn't even leave a scratch. But to drive them away, I got up and went to the kitchen. A moment later, I took out a Molotov cocktail. "It looks like you're cold. Let me warm you up today." Then I lit the Molotov cocktail and threw it into a passage. The Molotov cocktail rolled out along the passage. In an instant, a fire surrounded the neighbors. When the neighbors realized it was a Molotov cocktail, the people in front were already charred inside and out. In their struggle, they didn't pay attention and fell straight down from the 21st floor. As for me, I looked at the scene outside and murmured, "It should be warm now, right?" The neighbors surrounded by the fire prepared to retreat, but the neighbors in the next building saw this and not only didn't rescue them, but also stopped them. "Don't come over here. You're beyond saving. If you're going to die, don't drag me down with you." Saying this, they waved their weapons and refused to let them move forward. In the end, under the blockade of the fire and the neighbors, they all fell from the building. They watched their neighbors being burned alive, but some of them still didn't move, and even stretched out their hands to warm up. "It's so warm, so warm." Seeing this, some neighbors couldn't sit still anymore. After the fire was extinguished, they came to my balcony again. I thought they were going to try something new, but they knelt down and pleaded, "Zhang Yi, please, I'm really starving. Even a slice of bread will do." As they spoke, the other neighbors also followed suit, begging me for food and saying that they would do anything I asked in the future. However, I was holding a hot bowl of noodles, smiling and saying, "Please don't do this, everyone. It hurts me to see you like this. When I'm hurt, I don't feel like eating." As I spoke, I deliberately slurped the noodles, which made the neighbors drool. He was itching to rush in and devour 200 bowls of food right away. All right, he said, "Isn't it enough that I'm giving you a chance?" At this moment, anyone who could bring me the head of Zhenghao would be shown some mercy. I don't care if it's a week's worth of noodles, I'll add a whole cow to his meals. But as soon as I said this, the neighbors instantly turned their heads to look at Zhenghao. Chen, who was still utterly confused, was wondering why they had stopped attacking. Could it be that Zhang Yi had said something to them? The next second, the group of neighbors, as if infused with chicken blood, stared at Zhenghao without blinking. Zhenghao immediately felt a wave of panic and unconsciously started to retreat. Soon, he was surrounded by his neighbors. It was only then that he realized that Zhang Yi had set him up. Thankfully, he had a gun and 2 loyal followers, which allowed him to escape from the back. Otherwise, he might have been killed right there. But the matter was far from over. Early the next morning, the neighbors ambushed Zhenghao's front door. As soon as he stepped out, they were ready to take him down. Either way, they were going to die, so they might as well fight with Zhenghao. Maybe they could exchange some food with Zhang Yi. Soon, there was movement at Zhenghao's door. He sent his followers out to shovel snow and fetch water with his gun. The followers were helpless. At this moment, the neighbors suddenly rushed out with big knives. The first to notice was Chen's follower, who immediately shouted, "Brother Hao, watch your back." Zhenghao turned around and killed the 2 men. After dealing with them, Zhenghao immediately asked his follower to drag the bodies away. After all, in this apocalypse, this was one of the few good sources of food. But just as they were dealing with one, the follower was surprised to find that Brother Hao seemed to have been stabbed in the back. At this point, Zhenghao felt a dull pain in his back. He had no choice but to call Dr. Zhou again. Dr. Zhou quickly came to bandage him. As a thank you, Zhenghao brought a bowl of chicken feet. Dr. Zhou was stunned when he saw it. Wasn't this the bones of the 2 men just now? He immediately stated that he would rather starve than touch it. But Zhenghao didn't care. He touched Dr. Zhou's face and said, "Don't be afraid, having a doctor in this tomb is too important. Even if one day I have to sacrifice you, I will keep you till the end." As soon as he finished speaking, Dr. Zhou slapped Zhenghao's hand away and tried to leave. But as soon as he turned around, he was blocked by Chen's follower. "Dr. Zhou, you've come a long way, just stay here. Anyway, until my injury is healed, you can't leave." Unexpectedly, Dr. Zhou turned his misfortune into a blessing. In one of their conversations, he learned that Zhenghao said that Zhang Yi's house was like a turtle shell. They had attacked several times without success, but his house had the most food. So, they planned to live next to my house, keep watch in shifts, and cut me into pieces whenever they had the chance. Upon hearing this, Dr. Zhou felt that something was wrong. He immediately excused himself to go to the bathroom and left. He immediately told me the news. But when I heard it, I was not only calm, but even more excited. Perhaps this was a good opportunity to truly eradicate him. Chen Zhenghao quickly started to act. He knocked on the door of my next-door neighbor, the man with glasses. The man with glasses, seeing that it was Chen Zhenghao, not only did not resist, but willingly gave up his house to him. After they went in, they breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that as long as they gave them the house, they would let them go. They still had some food left, at least they could live a little longer. But they didn't know what kind of person Chen Zhenghao was. He was a notorious tough guy in the whole neighborhood. As soon as the man with glasses turned around, his followers immediately started to act. In less than 2.5 seconds, they were taken down. Dr. Zhou, who was next to the wall, was completely scared by this scene. But Chen Zhenghao just laughed. You know that food is scarce, we have to prepare some food for the future. Don't be afraid, next I will give you a big surprise. Chen Zhenghao squatted outside my house for several days, but I never came out. Forced into a corner, he had to go and rob other neighbors of their supplies. But he knew in his heart that he didn't have many bullets left in his gun. Not only did he have to rely on it to rob supplies, but he also had to guard against his followers rebelling. The only chance was to take me down as soon as possible. And I saw all this clearly. Undoubtedly, Chen Zhenghao had begun to struggle. It seems that it's time to start acting. But before that, I need to give Zhou Ke a call. As soon as the call was connected, Zhou Ke immediately became serious. She said Chen Zhenghao had gone mad. Basically, all the food was gone. He was gathering everyone's combat power to rob the weak of their supplies. And his methods were extremely brutal. Not only did they want to rob all the supplies, but they also didn't spare the people. I've been detained by Chen Zhenghao for 2 days without any food. If this continues, I might not be able to hold on. Zhang Yi, can you save me? As soon as the words fell, I was taken aback. You know, Zhou Ke is one of the few main surgeons. In this apocalypse, she is a very rare existence. I can't let her die like this. Now Chen Zhenghao is taking advantage of the chaos to rob, it's time to give them a taste of their own medicine. Otherwise, they always say I'm a turtle. So, I immediately said to Zhou Can, you do one more thing for me. As long as the thing is successful, I will let you live. Who would have thought that at this moment the intolerable Zhou Peng would run over and smash my door, constantly cursing, Zhang Yi, you son of a bitch, you're hiding in the house like a hero. Come out and die. It's Zhou Peng again. I haven't seen him for a few days. I thought you went to play chess with the king of hell. How does it feel to be infected? You should know that your wound is more than 10 meters deep. The tetanus bacillus on it is constantly eroding them, just like maggots eating rotten meat. Plus, the outside temperature is low, your flesh and blood is their best warm bed. Soon, you will die of violent illness. Zhou Peng, hearing this, immediately collapsed. He knew I had medicine, but he deliberately didn't save him. He roared in fury, saying he wanted to kill me. But when I heard this, my face suddenly darkened. You're going to die anyway. Why don't I give you a suggestion? Do something you've never dared to do in your life. You know, that's the Fang Yuqing you've been licking all your life. Sure enough, Zhou Peng suddenly saw the light and immediately went home and pushed open the door of Fang Yuqing. He grabbed Fang Yuqing's hand and put it on his chest. Yuqing, you know I like you. Will you marry me now? But at this time, Fang Yuqing was already disgusted by the stench coming from Zhou Peng. She kept saying no and pushed Zhou Peng away. You're dying, stinky thing, get lost. Zhou Peng was furious when he heard this. He didn't expect that he was willing to give up his life for her, but today she said he was not a thing. He immediately turned around and grabbed Fang Yuqing's neck. You dare to scold me? Then let's go to hell together today. Meanwhile, on the other side, Zhou Ke, in order to survive, decided to agree to help me do one thing. She saw Chen Zhenghao in the living room, and his follower was cooking in the kitchen alone. She immediately offered to help. At this time, Chen Zhenghao couldn't help laughing. Really? You would have been fine if you had obeyed earlier. Zhou Ke immediately replied, in this extreme cold weather, if there's no food, it's death. I don't want to die here. With that, she asked Chen Zhenghao and his follower to go out, leaving the cooking to her. Chen Zhenghao, of course, trusted her very much. Little did he know that this was giving Zhou Ke the perfect opportunity to act. As soon as they left, she poured all 200 pounds of sleeping pills into the pot, not forgetting to stir it. Soon it was mealtime, and everyone started eating. Chen Zhenghao was even mocking, I didn't expect Dr. Zhou to join us one day. But Zhou Ke didn't pay any attention, she picked up her bowl and headed for the kitchen. Now the only thing she was worried about was not being discovered. Now his only concern was not to be noticed. As long as they drank it, they'd sleep soundly for at least half a day. Sure enough, before long, they all fell into a deep slumber. Seeing the success of her plan, Zhang Yi immediately took out her phone and sent me a message, asking me what to do next. I was secretly delighted at the sight and suggested, next, you should drag them out onto the balcony. I planned to torment them a bit with the weather. Only then did I open the French windows, and looking at Zhang Yi shivering across the way, I couldn't help but smile. I quickly aimed my gun at her. Now, you do as I say, or you can look forward to eating peanuts. With that, I threw a 2-kilometer rope over to her, instructing her to find Qin Zhenghao's gun and tie their hands to the railing. Zhang Yi was taken aback and said, "Aren't you being overly cautious? Can't you come over and lend a hand? Do you think I would take that risk? Better safe than sorry. Just do as I say." Zhang Yi reluctantly complied, tying all of them to the railing, and found the gun from Qin Zhenghao's back. Upon seeing the situation, I immediately became serious. I asked Zhou Ke to disassemble the gun clip and throw it to me. Zhou Ke was taken aback. "Why are you doing this? How can I trust you? What if you turn your back on me?" I replied calmly, "You have no choice but to trust me now." After thinking for a moment, Zhou Ke followed my instruction and threw the gun to me. I caught the gun and examined it carefully. It looked identical to the one that Qin Zhenghao had in the surveillance footage. I then turned and walked into the room. Moments later, I pulled out a water hose and sprayed it. It was then that Zhou Ke understood. I was not only ruthless but also cautious. It seemed that if she wanted to survive, she had to obey me. Meanwhile, in the freezing -200°C weather, Qin Zhenghao and his companions were abruptly awakened. They immediately felt a chill running through their bodies. Who did this? Where did this icy water come from? How were we tied up here without noticing? Qin Zhenghao immediately sensed something was wrong. He turned his head and saw me. However, I had no intention of stopping. Instead, I turned all the faucets on. In an instant, they were drenched from head to toe. In less than 2.5 minutes, they were frozen to death. Only then did I tell Zhou Ke, "You passed the test. You can come over now." Upon hearing that she could finally come over, Zhou Ke was so delighted that she collapsed on the ground. Moments later, Zhou Kai arrived at my doorstep. I scanned the area through the surveillance system and saw no dangerous objects. I pointed the gun at the door and let him in. The moment he opened the door, Zhou Kai felt a warm current flowing towards him. After I closed the door, Zhou Ke was already intoxicated by the comfortable temperature. Just as he was enjoying the warmth, I put my hand on his back. "Now that you've entered my door, we are in the same boat. You have to prove that you are harmless to me." Zhou Ke blushed upon hearing this. He gathered his courage and stripped off his clothes, standing shyly in front of me, asking if it was okay. I didn't answer him, but handed him a towel and pushed him into my bathroom, requesting him to take a shower first. "After all, you've been enduring for so long. It's not easy. Also, I've picked out a set of clothes for you. Try them on later and see if they fit." When the sound of water came from the bathroom, I searched through his clothes and found 2 unused syringes. I immediately stored them in a space. At this point, Zhou Ke had come out of the bathroom. "Sit," I patted the sofa next to me. Zhou Ke obediently did as told, looking like a well-behaved child. I then started blow-drying his hair, telling him, "I let you stay because you're valuable. So you have to obey my orders from now on. If you have any ill intentions, I will kill you without hesitation. I've installed surveillance in the guest room next to mine. You must enter and exit at the times I specify. If you think you can't do what I say, you can leave now." Upon hearing this, Zhou Ke, of course, didn't want to leave. After all, it was like heaven here. "Okay, in that case, I'll tell you a secret. It's an important part of our partnership. Everyone who tried to kill me before was killed by me. The real reason for this snow disaster, which is actually the end of the world, is the supernova explosion. The explosion not only changed the weather but also affected human bodies, giving ordinary people a chance to gain superpowers. Of course, I'm one of them." As I said this, I conjured a loaf of bread out of thin air. That is to say, the resources in this house are just the tip of the iceberg. The real bulk of the supplies is in my space. If I die, all these resources will disappear. So, from now on, only if I survive, you'll have a chance to live longer." Zhou Ke was stunned by the revelation of superpowers. But he didn't have time to think about it. He immediately picked up the bread and started wolfing it down. "So, from now on, you'll be in charge of the household chores." Zhou Ke wanted to say something, but I cut him off. "From now on, you'll be my maid. Of course, apart from that, what services do you think you can provide for me?" Upon hearing this, Zhou understood that just cleaning was not enough. So, he quickly took off his shirt. What happened next? I know you don't like to read, so I'll skip it for you. The next morning, I brought breakfast to the bedroom, only to find that he was still asleep. I couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. Seeing me come in, he finally got out of bed. Seeing that breakfast was all cola and hamburgers, Zhou wolfed it down again. After he had eaten and drunk his fill, I immediately threw him the cold-proof suit. Let's go and smash that block of ice next. Zhou was stunned. He knew Qin Zhenghao was already dead. What did I want to do? But I replied indifferently, he was a scumbag in the eyes of everyone in the community. Leaving him there is not only an eyesore, but I also want to take this opportunity to warn the neighbors about who is the boss here. Of course, for the sake of our unbreakable friendship, you can do the work. Zhou was speechless, but he had no choice but to follow my instructions. He walked up and smashed the frozen Qin Zhenghao with a stick. The whole scene was recorded by my phone. Zhou saw me recording and initially resisted, but thinking about the food and the poker, he became even more aggressive. In less than 2.5 minutes, everything was done. When I posted the whole process in the group chat, the surviving neighbors were all in an uproar. They all said I did a great job and that the devil finally died. But just as they were celebrating, my next voice message broke their excitement because I told them that since Qin Zhenghao was dead, I was now in charge of this building. At this moment, Fang Yuqing called. I was surprised. I didn't expect her to still be alive. The first thing she said when the call connected was to ask if I was with Zhou. She also said that now that Qin Zhenghao was dead, could she come to my house? You promised to feed and clothe her, so she was waiting for you. After she finished speaking, I asked, "You're still alive, you little cutie?" She misunderstood and said, "So, Zhang Yi brother, you didn't know that I was still alive. That's why you let Zhou come to your house." "Zhang Yi brother, I'm still alive. Can I come over now? Then you can kick Zhou out. In the end, we can be together. How about the 18 palms of the dragon descending?" After saying this, her girlfriend behind her was furious. "You ruined us, and you're still trying to slip away. Do you think this is appropriate?" The two of them started fighting again. Zhou heard this and held me tighter, leaning on my shoulder like a little woman. "Zhang Yi, don't worry. I won't be like them." I couldn't help but blush. If Fang Yuqing knew that I had played poker with Zhou, would she go crazy right away? Sure enough, when Fang Yuqing saw the news, she went crazy. She kept yelling at her phone, "It's not like this. I love you the most. Zhou must be trying to deceive you. Food, please give me another chance. I will prove that I am the one who loves you. Please, Zhou is beautiful and has a good figure. Look at your slovenly appearance. Do you think you're qualified?" After saying these words, I deleted Fang Yuqing from my contact list. After all, there was no need to bother with her anymore. She would soon die in this end of the world. Then I asked my wife, "Do you think I was too cruel to do this?" But she didn't refute me. Instead, she hugged me tighter and said, "You must have a reason to do this." I patted Kur's hand. If she knew that Fang Yuqing had chopped me up and made soup in her previous life, I believe she would understand me better. It was soon lunchtime, and Zhou brought the food up. But I was staring at my phone screen, not even looking at the food. I asked Zhou, "Did you make this yourself? If so, you should try it first." Zhou was instantly heartbroken. He's still afraid that I poisoned him even after we've played poker together, she thought. But I was engrossed in my phone because Aunt Lin was causing a stir in the group chat. She said the snow disaster would soon pass and demanded immediate supplies. Otherwise, she threatened that we would be executed after the snow disaster. I was speechless after reading this. Reflecting on the past, Qin Zhenghao was the first one to rob Aunt Lin. But why is she still alive? At this point, Zhou said, "When I was treating her grandson at the time, I felt sorry for him, so I gave them a bit of the supplies." I was left speechless again. You know Aunt Lin is notoriously bad, and yet you still gave her supplies? Upon hearing this, Zhou hurriedly explained that the snow disaster had just started at that time. If she had known the situation, she would not have acted rashly. But I murmured, "Giving supplies is a minor issue. The problem is that those supplies should have been eaten up a long time ago. How did she survive until now? I guess when I went to treat her grandson, there were no drugs." Without any surprises, her grandson died 10 days ago. I suddenly realized the truth. Indeed, only by cherishing her grandson could she show her true love. This made sense. Suddenly, a man in the building opposite burst into laughter and jumped from the 200th floor. His friend followed suit. Seeing this, Zhou couldn't help but sigh, "Everyone's gone mad." When will this snow disaster end? Just then, Uncle Lou called. As soon as the call was answered, Uncle Lou began to stammer, seemingly needing my help. Hey, Zhang Yi, how are you doing these days? Yet, I chose to help him, because he is one of the few good people in this community, honest and kind. Plus, he's a martial artist that I'm sure he'll be useful in the future. But when he expressed his needs, I was stunned that he said that Shelly May's daughter has a high fever, asking if my house has any medicine. That I was speechless after hearing this. You know, Uncle Yu has been a bachelor all his life and Shelly May is young and attractive, probably Uncle Yu couldn't resist, which led her to him. But considering Uncle Yu, I decided to help him. Then I told him to come and get it, and Uncle Yu also promised, in the future, wherever he can be of use, he will never refuse. But after hanging up the phone, what surprised me was not Uncle Yu's words, but this Shelly May is really not simple. You know, in the whole building, only Uncle Yu has the supplies I reminded him of. But this Shelly May found him. Zhou Ke also felt puzzled. She asked me why I still wanted to help him, and I said, of course, it's because all the world is in chaos, all for profit. Let Uncle Yu owe me a favor. In the future, I will surely be able to use him. Besides, I don't want his only human brilliance to be wasted in this apocalypse. Soon my door was knocked, and I opened the surveillance first. What surprised me was Shelly May also came. That I, in order not to get involved with Shelly May, I immediately threw out the fever medicine that I thought they would leave with my kindness, but Shelly May started to push her luck. Zhang Yi, I beg you, can you let my baby stay for a while? My house is too cold. If this goes on, my baby will definitely freeze. Please show mercy and help me. I was speechless after hearing this. It's nothing more than wanting to take advantage of the child to come in and enjoy the benefits. I can't let such a person in. So, I made up an excuse to prevaricate. Sister Shelly, in this special period, I can't let you in. Besides, I don't have much food at home. You coming in will only drag me down. Uncle Lou hurriedly explained that Zhang Yi was right. Giving me medicine is already very kind. They can go home and cover the child with more quilts. That's not a problem. But Shelly May wouldn't listen at this time, kept crying outside the door. I know this request is a bit inappropriate, but I really have no other choice. You just look at Uncle Yu and the baby's sake. Just open the door and let us in. I immediately frowned after hearing this. You know, this is contempt. Now the whole building wants to occupy my house. Just in case, I hope you can understand, right? Uncle Yu heard this and immediately grabbed Shelly May, scolded her to stop making trouble. Zhang Yi has been kind enough to us and gave us medicine. Oh, you know how hard it is to have medicine at this time. As soon as his words fell, Shelly May immediately retorted, why can Zhou Ke live in his house? Zhou Ke is my girlfriend. Is there a problem? Unexpectedly, as soon as these words were spoken, Zhou Ke's face turned red, although it may just be a casual remark, but it feels very warm and happy. Let's go, don't bother Zhang Yi anymore. He's been kind enough to us, we shouldn't be too much. After saying that, he pulled Shelly May to go back. Before leaving, he didn't forget to apologize to me, and after they left, I couldn't help but sigh. This Shelly May is really troublesome, not to mention affecting Uncle Yu. Now it's affecting me. Now I have to think of a way to guard against him from messing around. After all, my relationship with Uncle Yu is pretty good. I can't let him ruin my plan. On the other hand, Uncle Lou went back and started arguing with Shelly May. He said, Shelly May, don't be greedy. How could Zhang Yi possibly help you take care of the child? And Shelly May said everything was for the child. She even said that if the child died, he wouldn't see any point in living. Uncle Lou immediately retorted, don't you understand? But we at least need to know how to be grateful. If it weren't for Zhang Yi letting me invest more supplies, I would have starved to death here. So, this great kindness must be repaid in the future. But Shelly May's face turned dark after hearing this. He deliberately leaned against Uncle Yu and stirred up trouble. In fact, you don't have to be grateful to Zhang Yi. If he really cared about you, why would he guard against you? Besides, even if he helped you, he didn't lose much. Those medicines were thrown out. You still think he's not guarding against you? Maybe he deliberately gave you little favors, just hoping that you can work for him in the future. If he's really a good person, he wouldn't have used such cruel methods to kill so many neighbors. As soon as these words were spoken, Uncle Yu immediately exploded. Shelly May, what do you mean? He's kind-hearted. How did it change in your mouth? No matter what, he is my benefactor. If you dare to talk like that in the future, you get out. I even doubt my benefactor. Am I still human? As soon as Shelly May heard that she was going to be kicked out, she immediately put on a pitiful look. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about the child. After Uncle Yu left, his face changed immediately, thinking that this opportunity cannot be missed. Must find a way to live in my house, no matter what the price. Everything I do is for me and my child to survive. So a bold idea came to him. That day I was still playing poker with Zhou Ke. Suddenly there was a loud explosion outside the door. I thought it was the women coming to cause trouble again, but I didn't expect to see a group of unfamiliar faces on the surveillance. Thankfully, my house is still solid. The living room and the second bedroom are intact, and they all had weapons. Presumably, they came for me. It turns out that not long ago, the news of food in my house reached the neighboring community, and this group of hungry decorators took their shovels, started digging a tunnel in the snow. Finally, after digging for 2.5 days, they broke through the snow, just entered the community, and met the neighbors who were fetching water. The neighbors noticed something was amiss. They tried to escape, but were knocked out by the workers with a shovel, saying they would return him after they finished their business. After all, in this tomb, he would make decent food. Their target was none other than myself, and soon they arrived at my doorstep. Every decorator knows, the dynamite in their hands is a common sight. They promptly placed the bomb at my door, and with the violent explosion, I was abruptly awoken. Hastily, I checked the surveillance to find out that these were all outsiders, each armed. If my guess was correct, they should be the decorators living in the next block. They must have been bent on prying open my door. But after the explosion, they immediately checked the situation, only to find my door, save for some scratches, was undamaged. The leader even asked Feng Donkey if the dynamite was expired. Feng Donkey, confused, replied, "It shouldn't be. I prepared it according to the atomic bomb formula. Could it have gotten damp?" Seeing no effect, they prepared to break the wall with their weapons, unaware of what was to come. I took out white phosphorus from a space and fused it with the bomb. The burning temperature of white phosphorus can reach 1000 degrees, enough to vaporize a person instantly. So, I ignited the phosphorus bomb and threw it out. The men scattered at the sight of the bomb, thinking they could avoid it. But the next second, the phosphorus bomb exploded, and they were instantly engulfed in flames. Within 2.5 seconds, they vanished. They tried to escape from both sides, but I shot them in the head. The others were so frightened they froze. In just a few seconds, those who had tried to break my door were either burned or shot by me. Thankfully, I had weapons at home, otherwise, I'd have no way to deal with them. However, I didn't dare to slack off. Even though the apocalypse had eliminated most people, there were still some ruthless ones becoming more rampant. I had to find a way to get a more lethal weapon. Turning around, I saw Zhou Ke was already curled up on the ground, scared. When I told her it was okay, she looked embarrassed, as if she wanted to say something but couldn't. She asked me what had just happened, and I explained everything to her. She realized the seriousness of the situation, and agreed it was even more dangerous than Chen Zhenghao's gang. Chen Zhenghao was just a bully with a gun, but these workers were different. They were physically strong and lived together, which made them a significant threat to me. Thankfully, I had taken out the demolisher, otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sleep soundly. Zhou Ke, worried, asked what we should do next, whether we should seek revenge. I murmured that revenge was a must, but I wouldn't do it personally. To live peacefully, I'd need some neighbors to be cannon fodder. I sent a message to the community group, telling them about the explosion and the workers' intent to rob us. The neighbor on the 10th floor, Zhang Meng, had been killed, but I had driven them away. As expected, a group of sycophantic neighbors responded, calling me their hero. Just then, Uncle Yu, who had seen the message, called me, asking if I was hurt and if he needed to help. He had drunk with those people before, but I declined. I didn't want Uncle Yu to sacrifice himself for such a trivial matter. However, I had a new idea. Since Uncle Yu knew them well, why not tell me about them, so I could think of a strategy to deal with them? Uncle Yu recognized them as his good friends and told me everything about them. He suggested rallying the neighbors to fight against them, saying that was the only way to win. However, I disagreed. All the neighbors were suspicious of me. If I did this, they would think I had something to gain. It was better to ignore them since we had enough food. The workers could come once, they could come twice. Moreover, I had killed so many of them, they would definitely seek revenge. By then, the neighbors would naturally come to us for help. Uncle Ho agreed and said we should do that. After hanging up the phone, I immediately sought Zhou Kai. After all, to perfectly implement the plan, I needed him. I held Zhou Kai's face and said, "The neighbors outside are praising me on the surface, but each of them has ulterior motives. There are some things I can't do myself. You help me gather information in secret for the next 2 days. This way, we can survive longer." Quickly, 2 days passed, and Zhou Ke had collected the latest information. The workers from the next block were called the Tianhe Gang, a small construction team under the Tianhe Group. Their main weapons were iron balls and rebar, but no firearms had been found yet. Another threat was the Mad Wolf Gang from Block 21, led by Wang Chang and Xiao Lu. They were mostly young men in their 20s, strong and robust. The rest were scattered neighbors, who had turned against each other due to lack of food. Only a few were left, not enough to be a threat. I listened and pressed the rebar against Zhou Kan's back, saying, "Good job. I'll reward you tonight." As expected, the Tianhe Gang came to our floor again, killing a bunch of neighbors and leaving a vow at the scene. They said if I didn't come out, they would kill all the neighbors. This news quickly spread to the neighbors, each of them saying the Tianhe Gang was brought by me and I had to deal with them. I smiled. These neighbors turned their backs faster than flipping a book. But this was exactly what I wanted. So, I replied in the group, "If you have the guts, go resist them. You all know the danger, why should I go out? Just because these people were brought by you and you don't go out to resist for us, who will resist? Your conscience must have been eaten by a dog." After hearing this, I was furious. I immediately sent a voice message in the group. "You want to live or die, what's that got to do with me? Keep talking like that, and don't blame me for not being polite. Don't think I won't dare to kill you." Our neighbors were shocked to hear this. They thought that after Chen Zhenghao died, they could survive. But now, a more brutal gang, Tianhe, has come. It seems that everyone is going to die in this snowstorm. However, I'm not panicked at all. In fact, I even want to fight with Zhou Kur for 200 rounds, because the next step is the first step of the plan. I immediately dialed Uncle Yu's phone. "Uncle Yu, it's your turn to play your part." I saw people in the group still trying to morally kidnap me, so I let Uncle Yu start brainwashing in the group. He said that if everyone wants to survive, they should unite. There are only about 20 people in the Tianhe gang. As soon as he said this, the neighbors agreed and strongly supported Uncle Yu. Seeing the neighbors start to be deceived, Uncle Yu immediately replied in the group. "Although this is a method, my family supplies have also been exhausted. We might as well follow Zhang Yi. He not only has weapons but also food at home. He is the best choice to lead us." Then he pretended to be serious and said that he was familiar with Zhang Yi. He could go to him and talk. The neighbors, of course, agreed. After all, this is the only chance to survive. I saw that the timing was almost right, and I immediately replied in a pretentious manner in the group. "For Uncle Yu's sake, I'm willing to talk to you. But you'd better not be ungrateful. Otherwise, you just wait for them to come and harvest." As soon as I said this, the neighbors were immediately scared and begged me to help them. They even said that they would do whatever I asked them to do in the future. "Is that so? You'll do whatever I ask? Then if I ask you to pick up weapons and fight with the Tianhe gang, would you dare to go?" Unexpectedly, as soon as the message was sent out, the neighbors were immediately speechless. "You want to live, you want me to fight for you, huh? You just wait to wash your necks and let the people from the Tianhe gang harvest. I don't have time to worry about your life or death anymore." After saying that, I pretended to prepare to hang up the phone. But at this time, Uncle Yu immediately came out to make peace. "Zhang Yi is right. Everyone should listen to Zhang Yi. It's death anyway. If we fight with them, we still have a chance to survive. If you hesitate, you can only wait for others to slaughter." At this time, the neighbors, of course, also understand that this is the only chance to survive. So they agreed. And in order to prevent any trouble, I continued to pretend in the group. "You must obey my orders. If there are traitors, they will be executed on the spot. Since everyone is willing to follow me, of course, I will not let everyone starve. I will find a way to go out and find supplies. And of course, I'm not doing this out of kindness. It's for my own logistics. After all, I want to use this group of neighbors as cannon fodder. I have to at least ensure their combat effectiveness. And to go out and find weapons and supplies, my snowmobile in the space is just useful. With it, I can come and go freely in the snow." And when the neighbors knew that I was going out for them, they were so moved that they cried. They even said that they would go all out in the future. Seeing this, I just smiled. Little did they know that this was all part of my plan. After my self-drama with Uncle Yu, the neighbors suddenly began to trust me. And for this, I can finally go out boldly. However, on the surface, I am going out to find food, but in fact, I just want to take the opportunity to go out for a walk and then find a batch of reliable weapons. And knowing that I'm going out, Zhou Kaier immediately shyly asked me if she could go with me. But before she finished speaking, I immediately stopped her. "You just stay at home. I won't doubt our relationship. Besides, there's enough food at home. Don't worry, I'm just going out for a couple of days." After saying that, I turned around and left. And leaving, I came to the 4th floor, opened the window, and jumped out. At this time, the snow has reached the height of the 4th floor. It's completely impossible to walk on foot. It's very difficult. So I looked around to make sure no one was watching me. I took out the snowmobile from the space. With it, I can come and go freely in the snow. And this motorcycle, I'm sure someone will try to kill me for it in the future. However, after I wandered in the snow for a while, I came to the Tianhe City Public Security Bureau for the first time. Because there are things I want inside. But when I smashed the glass, I found that there was no one inside. The only policeman was also frozen to death in the corner. I couldn't help but sigh. When the storm came, they were still on duty. There was not even a piece of cold protection clothing on their bodies. What peace and quiet, there are a group of people blocking it. Each of them deserves to be respected. Suddenly, a strange item caught my eye. I was immediately excited. I tore it open and found out that it was the key to the weapon arsenal. As soon as I opened the door, I was stunned by the scene in front of me. Not only were there aircraft carriers here, but also my favorite Barrett sniper rifle. With the addition of these weapons, let alone the neighbors who have explosives, even if all the people in the community come to rebel, I'm not afraid. But this is just not enough. My goal is to turn all the people in the neighborhood into cannon fodder and form a combat-effective team. Then I can live longer in this end of the world. But cannon fodder also needs feed. So my first thought was to go to the supermarket. I quickly stopped the motorcycle because, according to my memory, this should be the Walmart supermarket. Sure enough, I swept away the snow, and there was a huge mall underneath. I jumped down and found that it was full of luxury goods. I couldn't afford to buy them in my last life even if I saved up. After the end of the world, they became waste products. They are useless to others, but they are not bad for me to give to Joe, Kansas. After collecting these items, I came to the supermarket on the negative first floor. Although the food here has not been discovered by anyone, it has been a long time. Many of them can't be eaten. Even if they are put in front of the dogs, they won't eat them. But I still collected them all. After all, for my neighbor cannon fodder, this is simply a delicacy. I quickly filled the motorcycle with food. And my movement was clearly seen by the people of the Tianhe gang next door. I thought to myself, if I had this motorcycle, I wouldn't be affected by food in the future. We have to find a way to get it. And of course, I understand that once exposed, everyone will stare at me. But it doesn't matter to me. As long as I get new weapons this time, they will all have to die. I drove the motorcycle back with 2 big bags of food. So I immediately gathered all the neighbors to distribute the food. And show that the food is not easy to come by. If you want food, you have to listen to my command. And when the neighbors saw the food, they immediately got green eyes, shouting, "Long live Zhang Yi. We will go through fire and water in the future." Seeing the neighbors start to be deceived, I immediately said, I will definitely share these foods with everyone. But I will never raise idle people. If you eat, you have to pick up weapons to fight the enemy. Sure enough, as soon as the voice fell, the people from the Tianhe gang next door came with a group of little brothers. I immediately pointed at them and said, now is your chance to show. Whoever kills them, I will reward him with food for 5 people. The neighbors were stunned when they heard this. It's enough to let a person live at least 5 more days. Suddenly, a group of neighbors with red eyes rushed up. And the people of the Tianhe gang were scared silly when they saw this. In a moment, they fought with the neighbors who were like chickens with their blood drawn. Everyone was thinking about killing more people and getting more food. And Uncle Yu. As long as we stand together, we fear no bandits, I said. I then called over the 2 most industrious men and in front of all the neighbors, I handed them the promised food ration for 5 people. I patted their shoulders encouragingly, keep up the good work, I will never let you down. The men were so moved that they burst into tears. After all, I was the only one distributing food in this post-apocalyptic world. Seeing this, other neighbors became envious, regretting that they hadn't put in more effort to earn the food. I smirked at their reaction, this was exactly what I wanted. Of course, I would distribute the remaining food, but some neighbors had already started plotting, thinking if they could take out all the members of the Tianhe gang, wouldn't I give them more food? However, this was exactly the outcome I wanted. I would distribute the remaining food because, after all, even cannon fodder needs to be fed. If they wanted more, they would have to fight for it. Soon, it was Su Hao's turn to receive his food. He asked me where his food was. Seeing his expression darken, I simply tossed him an expired candy, this is your ration for today. Su Hao was shocked, Zhang Yi, are you joking? Why do I only get a candy? Why? I retorted, when everyone else was fighting the Tianhe gang, you were just standing back, doing nothing. Don't think I didn't see it. You didn't even touch a member of the Tianhe gang. You should be grateful I even gave you a candy. Hearing this, Su Hao was furious, but the other neighbors laughed. Su Hao tried to argue that he had no opportunity to fight due to the crowd, but I cut him off, I don't want excuses, I want results. Su Hao was displeased, Zhang Yi, this is unfair. You are clearly targeting me. Fair? You dare to talk about fairness with me? Today, I'll show you what fairness is. With a wave of my hand, a group of neighbors moved towards Su Hao. In the next second, he was pinned to the ground by the neighbors. Su Hao is resisting my orders. How should we punish him? I asked. The result was a flurry of punches and kicks from the neighbors. As I continued to brainwash the neighbors, saying that if anyone disagreed with my actions, they could leave without fear of retaliation from me, none of them left. After all, the food I was providing was their lifeline. Seeing this, I smiled, well, congratulations on joining Team Zhang Yi. After Su Hao was beaten and his only candy was kicked away and retrieved, I told the neighbors, if you want to eat in the future, you have to listen to me. I don't need freeloaders here. For today, the food distribution ends here. The rest will be distributed on schedule. Just then, a woman's voice came from the group of neighbors. Brother Zhang Yi, I haven't received anything yet. I looked over and saw it was Fang Yuqing and her best friend. I smiled. Oh, it's you two green tea bitches. How could I forget you? I didn't plan to give you anything. After dealing with this, I took a deep breath, glad that the troublemakers were finally gone. Now, it was time to discuss how to fortify our building. We have 47 people in our building, excluding children and those who can't fight. Apart from me, Zhou Kuo, Uncle Yu, and Xia Limei, the rest will be divided into 6 groups to guard in shifts. We must prevent people from other buildings from attacking. In case of emergencies, knock on the stair railings or any metal objects. The rewards I mentioned are still valid. If you kill an enemy, I will reward you with a 5-person food ration. If you're just on duty, you can only choose from the leftovers. Uncle Yu, I'm entrusting this to you. After returning home, instead of resting, I started studying firearms on my tablet. But the snow outside kept falling, and winter was coming. The temperature might drop even further. I needed to take care of the Tianhe gang as soon as possible. But with these weapons, it shouldn't be a problem. In the post-apocalyptic world, the most terrifying thing is not the environment, but people themselves. These heavy weapons were good, but I had never used them before. So, I went to the balcony and aimed at 2 figures not far away. They were sneaking into my parking lot, probably to mess with my snowmobile. Just as I was about to shoot them, Uncle Yu called, Zhang Yi, I took the food you gave, thank you so much. And don't take to heart what Xia Limei said before. Women are just talkative. Don't be polite with me. I'm not petty. But Uncle Yu, are you sure you want to raise someone else's child? You're strong and a good fighter. You're in demand in this world. And Aunt Xia is pretty good overall. Why don't you try to have a child? That way, you won't feel your efforts were in vain. Hearing this, Uncle Yu was embarrassed. I don't dare to think about it now. Let's talk about it when things are more settled. If there's nothing else, I'll hang up. Contact me anytime if you need anything. After hanging up, I turned to look at my beloved. Honey, some things take time. Don't you agree? No sooner had I finished speaking than Zhou Kuo threw herself at me, and it was time for my workout. Meanwhile, the armed members of the Tianhe gang had entered our floor. But as soon as they tried to ascend the stairs, a banging sound came from above, followed by a brick flying down. It was one of the neighbors I had assigned to guard duty. He was frantically hitting the stair railing with a brick and shouting, the Tianhe gang is back. Come out and fight. Kill 1 person and get a 5-person food ration. The Tianhe gang members were taken aback. They hadn't expected the neighbors in our building to turn against them. Undeterred, they charged upstairs, only to be beaten back by our united neighbors within 2.5 minutes. The leader of the Tianhe gang finally realized the gravity of the situation and ordered his minions to retreat. They fled in a hurry, but I wasn't about to let them off the hook. I took aim and fired again, dropping all of them. I found myself smiling. I was a natural marksman. From now on, I could stay hidden and deal with the invaders. There was no need to go out anymore. Hearing the gunshots, the neighbors were terrified. They guessed I was responsible. The fact that I could take out enemies from such a distance made me a rare sharpshooter. They realized they had to listen to me if they wanted to survive. After all, the only reason they were still alive was that I hadn't lost my temper, yet.